Hello, welcome to Auctions in Action, how commercial real estate auctions can help your next deal.
We're here in the auction room where transactions happen twice as fast, twice as certain. My name is Todd Gladys and I am the Senior Director of Auction Events with 10X, now LoopNet. I've been running our auctions for over 20 years.
And I'm Matthew Davis. I'm the Senior Director of Marketing with 10X and now with LoopNet. I've had the pleasure of working with the company and with Todd for over 10 years. At LoopNet, our goal is to help you sell more properties. And now we're the exclusive host to a new solution for faster transaction. Online auctions. I know auctions might be new to a lot of you, so I thought it'd be a good opportunity to invite Todd, a resident auction expert, to tell us a little more about the basics.
Well, thanks, Matt. I've been running auctions, like we said, for over 20 years. Land auctions, home auctions, even commercial real estate auctions, selling close to $34 billion. Matt, I've seen a thing or two about auctions.
Yeah, you and I work with auctions every day, so take us through the basics of some of online auctions and tell everybody what they need to get started.
Exactly. Well, today we're going to talk about what auctions are, how they work in commercial real estate, when to use auctions, how auctions work at LoopNet, and maybe spotlight a standout success from one of our past auction deals.
Now, Todd, let's start with the basics. What is an auction?
Well, an auction is a publicly held sale at which property, goods, or services are sold to the highest bidder. And these goods and services can be anything. Some people come to auctions when they want to buy something rare or unique. And many choose to sell at auction because of the competitive bidding environment.
Yeah, I'm actually a really big fan of auctions. I participated in my first auction as a teenager, bought my very first car at auction. Now I bid on watches, books, and you and I have even ran some charity auctions for some local schools here in Southern California. I think they're a great way to buy or sell anything.
Those were fun charity auctions, weren't they?
They were great.
Well, they're everywhere too, Matt. There's all kinds of goods and services that flow through auctions. And if you've never used auctions for your commercial properties, I have a feeling you're already familiar with many that do conduct auctions. You may have heard of Sotheby's, Christie's, Barrett-Jackson, NASDAQ, and of course, eBay for everything under the sun. And if you know how these auctions work, you're well on your way to understanding our auctions.
Yeah, so all those auctions do work. What is about auctions that make them work so well?
There are a lot of reasons why to choose auctions. First, they're transparent. As a buyer, you know exactly what you can expect to pay. And as a seller, you have more visibility into who's bidding, how much they're offering, and how your property is being marketed. You can also sell with greater speed and efficiency. Traditional transactions can drag on, sometimes taking weeks, months, even years to close. Our average auction comes from list to close in just under 100 days.
So if I were to say auctions are faster and more efficient, why is that?
Well, auctions have no negotiations, which is the biggest difference. The competitive bidding environment is the negotiation. Auctions take that offer-counteroffer process down to minutes or even seconds. Auctions are much more certain than traditional transactions. Once the deal sells at auction, you have a much lower risk that the deal will fall out in escrow.
Yeah, Todd, I completely agree. That offer-counteroffer process really shortens the time between making an offer and the seller accepting. Also love the competitive bidding nature that happens in auctions. I always know where my competition is at, and I know where my best offer stands. Auctions are really a great way to close a deal quickly and sell anything. Now, Todd, there's something that we hear a lot, and I want to address it. Some people think that auctions are a last resort for commercial real estate, that they're what you do when you have a distressed or a property that is poor quality, and there are no other options. Is that true?
Not quite. We do hear that a lot. The thing is, these types of auctions, they do exist. So when people see auctions for defaulted or dilapidated properties, bank auctions, HUD auctions, foreclosure auctions, or IRS-seized properties, they assume they speak for all auctions. What's common today actually are private individuals who own commercial real estate at all different price points, using auctions to dispose of their commercial real estate.
Since we started running commercial real estate auctions, we've successfully sold over $34 billion worth of properties. Have some of these properties been distressed or part of that stereotypical auction group? Absolutely. But we sell properties of all kinds. Our platform has transacted Class A office properties, 5-star hotels, retail power centers, industrial properties, and even literal castles.
Well, you know what they say, Matt, a castle in the hand is worth two in the moat. At the end of the day, auctions are just another transaction method.
Todd, tell us, when are auctions the right transaction method?
Well, like we discussed earlier, it's not just a question of what kind of property you have. Think about what you're trying to accomplish in this transaction. Do you want to get the property sold quickly? Do you want to sell at the highest possible price? Do you want a certain sale with no risk of fallout? The right method depends on how you answer those questions. When you think about your deal, there are 4 key things that you want to consider: your timeline, the pricing you're after, your negotiations and terms, and the certainty of close.
Yeah, let's start with the timeline. Can you tell us a little more?
If you've sold commercial real estate the traditional way, you'll know that it can be flexible. You could go back and forth for months. Auctions are the opposite. These are date-certain transactions. The auction process follows a clear timeline with a set end date.
So say you have a property or a seller with a loan maturity approaching. Is this a good fit for an auction?
Auctions have been a great solution for these types of transactions. You know when your property is being marketed, and you know when it's going to auction and sale. On the other hand, if you're more flexible and you're willing to wait as long as it takes for pricing to move in your favor, you might want to go the traditional route.
Well, let's talk a little more about pricing. On average, are you going to get a similar price at auction as you would in the traditional market?
Well, auctions and traditional deals have 2 very different ways of determining pricing. With traditional deals, pricing comes from negotiation and market feedback.
What about auctions, Todd?
Well, the reserve price will be carefully determined to align with seller expectations and gives you the best possible chance of selling. But after that, it all comes down to the competitive bidding. And you never know. Sometimes bidders will surprise you.
How do negotiations come into play with auctions?
Well, that is one feature of traditional transactions. You have a lot more flexibility. There's more room to customize your transaction terms, and both the seller and the buyer will have the space to negotiate.
And are there negotiations in the auction process?
With auctions, negotiations are built into the process. As the seller, you set the reserve price to establish what you're willing to accept for the property. By placing bids, those investors are telling you what they're willing to pay. This all happens during the auction. When the auction ends, so do negotiations, and the participation terms for an auction are standardized and established up front. By participating in the auction, you're agreeing to follow this set process.
If the reserve is established up front and the participation terms, what else is established up front?
Bidders in auctions conduct their due diligence up front. It's almost the reverse of the traditional process. In those deals, due diligence typically comes during a contingency period. There's also an extended escrow period whereby buyers may have to lock up financing. All of this is of a contingent nature and can lead you to a much higher chance of fallout and retrade.
If auctions reverse the due diligence process, can you list your property without any of that due diligence?
You cannot, and because we collect the due diligence and make it available before the auction, that thorough assessment before bidding has already been done. This makes closing a quick, streamlined process, and your risk of fallout is low. And this is something we've seen often on our platform. Brokers come to us frustrated after multiple fallouts with a seller who wants to get the property sold and closed. Auctions can be that solution for them. They put the property in front of a new, wider audience, create a competitive bidding environment, and when the deal sells, it almost always closes. No lengthy negotiation periods or retrades, just a done deal.
At LoopNet, with auctions powered by 10X, our mission is to empower the commercial real estate industry to close more transactions faster and with more certainty. When you transact on our platform, you can rely on a transaction that has speed, reach, control, and certainty.
And if speed is what you're looking for, auctions are the way to go. We accelerate the sales process to just under 100 days list to close.
Wow, that's fast. One way we do that is by expanding our reach. Since we're part of CoStar Group, your property gets marketed to the largest qualified global buyer pool. 13 million searchers come to LoopNet every month. And when you add that to the 240,000 commercial real estate executives who subscribe to CoStar, that is a massive audience of motivated buyers who will see your property. You will not get that audience anywhere with any of the competition.
And when these millions of people interact with your listing, you'll see it. and you'll know about it. LoopNet and CoStar users all have access to Marketing Center, which lets you track all your listings in one centralized location. Want to see how your listing is performing? You can do that. Want to see your leads? You can do that also. And those leads are yours to keep.
And once the deal is done, you can rest easy knowing that it's likely to close. Our 100-day timeline, as is date certain event, helps us close faster, often within 30 to 45 days. We currently have a 97.3% closing rate for properties under contract. When you sell with LoopNet and Auctions by 10X, you can close with confidence. So Todd, let's tell them a little more how it works.
So first, you're going to bring us the property and we start what's called a valuation. We'll work with you to ensure that they have the right reserve price attached to the property, and that's the price you're willing to sell for. Once that's set, we start onboarding. We're doing everything to get your property ready to list. We're setting the auction date, taking high-quality photos and videos of your property, and putting together your listing page. We're also finalizing the due diligence. Then once the property is live, it's time for marketing, and that's when Matt's team comes in.
Yeah, remember what I said earlier about the 13 million monthly unique visitors coming to LoopNet each month? That's the power of marketing. Every listing gets a customized marketing plan that puts your property out on all channels. We use digital marketing, personalization, SEO, social media, AI targeting, all to put your property in front of the right audience at the right time. And throughout this whole period, potential investors can look at your property, underwrite it, and register to bid.
We're also doing the bidder qualification during this time, so when an auction day comes and you get bids, you know these bidders are not only interested, but they have the funds necessary to close. They've done their due diligence, and they've agreed to the terms of sale.
Well, let's tell them a little bit about how bidding works.
There's a 2-day live bidding period online, which we set when we list the property. These bidders can place their bids online at their convenience, and you can monitor everything in real time in our dashboards, from new bids to meeting the reserve to the moment it sells. As soon as it happens, you'll know about it.
After the auction, our team will support you through the non-contingent closing period. Due diligence was done before the auction. The buyer qualification was done before the auction. Because we handle these things ahead of time, closing takes just 30 to 45 days.
And overall, this all happened in just 100 days. It was that quick to take your property from list to close.
We've been running online auctions for nearly 20 years. In that time, we've transformed the commercial real estate transaction process many times over. We've collaborated with over 7,500 brokers to transact over 11,500 properties. I'm sure we all have our favorite stories from these auctions, but this is one of mine. Do you remember the Chickasaw Gardens office?
Who can forget Chickasaw, a recent success Class B office property just outside of downtown Memphis, where there's great barbecue and the home of the king. This property sold twice and fell out of escrow twice.
And that's when the broker brought it to us, Todd.
This deal was brokered by Cushman & Wakefield by a broker we'd worked with before. He knew what they had to do to get this deal done, to give it more of a structured timeline, to add more urgency to the deal, put it in front of a bigger audience to expand the pool of potential buyers, and then drive competition. And he knew our auctions could deliver that, and that's just what we did. This property got a lot of interest from people who might not have otherwise have seen it. Over 13,000 people viewed the listing online, 17 people registered to bid, and this property still sold for $6.85 million, a price higher than the seller's value. And this all took place over the course of just 91 days list to close.
Yeah, this was a really interesting deal to me, Todd. You remember those stereotypes we talked about earlier? This property seemed to be the opposite of that. Had everything going for it, like it didn't need to go to auction.
Exactly. On paper, this deal had everything going for it. We're near a major city with a nice office property that's almost fully leased. The broker was experienced and knew the area well, and he even had local buyers who were already interested. But even that wasn't enough to guarantee a traditional sale, especially when you're dealing with challenging market conditions. They needed the certainty of a done deal, and that's why they came to us.
Well said, Todd. That just about wraps up our session today. Todd, if there's one takeaway you want everyone to leave this webinar with, what would you want them to remember about LoopNet and Auctions by 10X?
Use them. No, in all seriousness, auctions aren't a mystery. They're just another way of transacting. Think of auctions as just one tool in your toolbox. As you prepare to transact your property, think about what you're trying to achieve. If you understand how auctions work, then you'll be able to make the best possible decision for your property.
We really enjoyed talking auctions with you today, and we hope this session answered some of your questions. If you're curious to learn more, head over to 10x.com for deeper insights into the auction process. And don't forget to browse our active listings on LoopNet. Before you go, make sure to download our free guide, The Auction Advantage. It's full of practical tips to help you sell with confidence and stay in control every step of the way.
And remember, Matt, we run auctions every week. If you're looking for speed, certainty, and control, consider auctions for your next deal.
Great stuff, Todd. Thanks for joining us, and thank you to everyone who tuned in. We appreciate your time and hope you're walking away with some valuable insights. Until next time, take care and good luck on your next deal.